deal with some of the history of Halloween. All right. So when we look at Halloween, and let's bring this up here. We know it takes place on October 31st each year. Okay. And Halloween 2020 was very unique because people are trying to figure out how to celebrate Halloween and social distance as well. Okay. So Halloween is a holiday celebrated each year on October 31st. And Halloween 2020 occurred on Saturday, October 31st. Okay. The tradition originated with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. Okay. Now it's spelled Samhan, Samhan, but it's pronounced Samhain. Now you'll see two different spellings, Sowin or Sowen, but it's pronounced Samhain. Okay. And it literally means summer's end, or it can mean the end of summer. But Samhain was the Celtic festival when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. Now in the 8th century AD, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as a time to honor all saints. November 1st is a time to honor all saints. So soon All Saints Day was incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain. Okay. Now the Romans are going to conquer the Celtics, or what we would call the Irish, around 43 by 43 AD. The Roman Empire conquers them. Okay. So when we deal with St. Patrick, and you hear me talk about St. Patrick's Day, and we deal with this mass murderer named Patrick, who killed thousands of Jewish, killed thousands of Irish on behalf of the Eastern Orthodox Church. And the Roman Empire has conquered the island of what we call Ireland. All right. So we're coming up here on a break. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. Let's go back. We're dealing with the history of Halloween, the history of Halloween. So in 8th century AD, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as a time to honor all saints. Soon All Saints Day incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain. Okay, Samhain was this ancient Celtic festival, which is, we're talking about the Irish, this ancient Celtic festival. And it occurred, Samhain occurred on right around that period of time, November 1st, and it marked the end of summer. Okay, now the evening before was known as, now when we look at 8th century AD, when we look at All Saints Day, the evening before All Saints Day was known as All Hallows Eve, All Hallows Eve. And later it was called Halloween, which is a contraction of All Hallows Eve. Sometimes you will see it referred to as All Hallows Even or All Hallows Evening. Now over time, Halloween evolved into a day of activities like trick-or-treating, carving jack-o'-lanterns, festive gatherings, donning costumes, eating treats, etc. Okay, this is going to evolve over time. Now, when we look at Halloween, is based upon three ancient festivals. One Celtic festival, which is Samhain that we talked about, and two Roman festivals. Okay. So Samhain was the ancient Celtic festival that dates back to about 2,500 years ago in the areas today called Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France. The areas we call Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France. Then you have two Roman festivals. You have the festival of Pomona. Pomona was the Roman goddess of fruit trees and a symbol of abundance. And the symbol of Pomona was the apple. The symbol of Pomona was the apple. And the incorporation of the celebration of Pomona into the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain is where it's believed bobbing for apples comes from. Okay. So what's taking place is that the Romans have their festivals and they conquer the Celtic people. And then over time, traditions from the Celtic festival of Samhain gets incorporated into the Roman festivals. Okay. And then they get merged together. We see the same thing happen with Christmas and things like the Roman festival of Saturnalia and a lot of these earlier winter festivals, how when different cultures, one group, when the Romans dominate one group, the customs of the people who are being conquered get incorporated into the others' celebration. Okay, we see the same thing with the Romans and the festival of Saturnalia, different things like this. We see this take place. Okay, so you have Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit trees, and a symbol of abundance. And the symbol of Pomona is the apple, and the incorporation of the celebration into Samhain probably explains the tradition of bobbing for apples that is practiced today on Halloween. Then you have the festival of Feralia, Feralia, Feralia. Now, Feralia was a day in late October when the Romans traditionally commemorated the passing of the dead. Okay. Now the ancient Roman festival of the dead celebrated on, and we're also going to see it celebrated on February 21st with prayers and sacrifices on behalf of the deceased. Excuse me, on behalf of the deceased. Okay, but we have the festival of the ancient Roman festival of the dead known as Feralia. Okay, so we see this festival also. All right, now, so Samhain, when we look at the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, this means summer's end, and it occurred on November 1st. This was amongst the Celtic people, this was their New Year's Day. And the harvest was collected to prepare for the winter, which could be deadly. On October 31st, which was Samhain Eve, it was believed that the boundaries between the worlds of the living and the world of the dead became blurred. Okay, so this would be October 31st. This would be Samhain Eve. It was believed amongst the ancient Celtic people that the boundaries between the living and the dead became blurred, and they believed that ghosts of the dead returned to earth from sundown to sundown. Okay. And they would wear masks and costumes to confuse the ghosts. Okay. So this time of the year was thought to be the most favorable for the Celtic Druid priest to make predictions about the future. They practice divination, etc. So when we study, when you hear me talk about the history of St. Patrick's Day, we know that ties into the Druids, and that ties into the Druids practicing a watered down version of the teachings coming out of ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt. And if you read Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Tony Browder, this deals with this. Okay, Elaine, who's that? Hold on, who is this? Elaine or Ellen? Elaine, both of you. Thanks for the donation. I think you donated before. I really appreciate that. Who is this? I want to make sure I get the name right. Ellen, yeah, Ellen. How you doing, Ellen? Thank you so much. So you have the ancient Roman festival. I'm sorry. You have when we talk about St. Patrick, all this history is connected. Let me show you a couple books. One, in preparation for the presentation I did some years ago dealing with the history of St. Patrick's Day, because I studied all of the European holidays that we've been taught to practice. Okay. And let me say this from the beginning. I'm not telling you don't celebrate Halloween. I'm not telling you don't celebrate Halloween. And I may say some things that are outside of the circumference of your own awareness. Just because you never heard them before, disagree with them, or don't like them does not mean they are not true. It just means you have to do some research to understand what it is I'm talking about. So with me, I've studied the history of all of the holidays we've been taught to celebrate. And two of the books that I read dealing with this were from Dr. Ishaka Musa Barashango, African People and European Holidays and Mental Genocide, book 1 and book 2. Dr. Ishaka Musa Barashango. All right. And one of his cousins is one of my friends, Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. All right. But so I've studied the history of all of these holidays. I don't celebrate any of them, but I still respect people who do celebrate them. Okay. So I'm not telling you don't celebrate them, but I think it's important if you're going to celebrate any of these holidays to actually understand the history of what it is you are participating in, what it is you are celebrating, so you have a better understanding of it, and it may change how you choose to celebrate it. Okay. And it's also important for us to understand that most of these holidays we were taught to celebrate when we were children. A lot of times in school, St. Patrick's Day, we were taught to celebrate St. Patrick's Day in school, and we were told to wear green. And we asked the teacher, why do we wear green? Oh, we wear green for St. Patrick's Day. Well, who was St. Patrick? Most of them can't tell you who St. Patrick was. All right. When you read Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Tony Browder, and we've talked about this before when we deal with the history of St. Patrick's Day. And I think the video I did, the most recent one, I think is on YouTube and Facebook, that I did with the history of St. Patrick's Day. But you go to page, was it page 98 or page 98? Let me see. Hold on. It's page 90 or 93 of no, which one is that? Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. I used to know which page it was off the top of my head. Hold on, we have it bookmarked here. But he talks about St. Patrick in here, and what was it, page 193, I think it is. Page 193. Page 193, the section is called The Development of European Secret Societies, the development of European secret societies. And Tony Browder was a friend of mine, brilliant historian. He's an archaeologist also. Browder talks about the Druids. The Druids are dealing with, they dress like Kemetic priests out of ancient Egypt. They're dealing with a watered down teaching of that's coming out of ancient Egypt. And they wear a helmet with a uraeus on it, or a cobra, a snake. What they're teaching contradicts what's being taught in the Christian church. Keep in mind, at this point in time, 4th century AD, when Pope Celestine I in 5th century AD, in 432 AD, Pope Celestine I sends a British slave named Patrick into Ireland to convert the Irish to Christianity. At this time, the Catholic Church does not exist. It's the Eastern Orthodox Church. But we were told that St. Patrick was known for driving the snakes out of Ireland. But when you study the history of Ireland, and to be able to do my presentation on St. Patrick's Day, I had to study the history of Ireland. So this is one of the books I read, the Everything Irish History of Heritage book, the Everything Irish History of Heritage book, to get an understanding of the chronology of Irish history. There's no evidence of snakes ever being in Ireland. Ireland is an island that's in a cold climate. So there's no evidence of snakes ever being. When you understand snakes live in warm climates. They don't live in cold climates. They can't survive in cold climates. All right. So the snakes that St. Patrick drove out of Ireland were the snake people called Druids. And when you study St. Patrick, he killed thousands of Irish. Well, most people, like in school, most teachers who are teaching children to wear green on St. Patrick's Day don't know they're honoring a mass murderer. Now, I'm not trying to offend anybody that has Irish ancestry or anything like that. Go study the history. Go and Browder lays it out here, pages 193 and 194 of Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. And then when we study St. Patrick's color wasn't even green, it was blue. So a lot of this stuff we've been taught to practice and celebrate is programming. when you go research it, you're like, why the hell are we doing this? So this is why Dr. Shaka Musa Barashango's books, African People and European Holidays of Mental Genocide, are so important. Once again, I'm not saying don't celebrate these holidays. I understand wanting to be together with family and things like that. I'm not saying don't celebrate them. I'm saying we should at least know what the hell it is that we're participating in, so we can make the determination whether or not we want to continue to participate in it. Because a lot of times when we're children, the decision is already made for us. Okay. And then when we ask like our teachers or even our parents, why we do this, why we wear green, what was it? They don't know, because that's what they were taught. Okay. So let's continue here. All right. And, okay, let's continue. Okay. So let's go back to, the slides real quickly here. Okay. So we have Sowen. Sowen means summer's end and occurred on November 1st. This was, the New Year's Day for amongst the ancient Celtic people. So the harvest was collected to prepare for the winter, which could be deadly. On October 31st, the day before Sowen, it was known as Sowen Eve. And it was believed that the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. They believed the ghost of the dead returned to the earth from sundown to sundown. Now, this time of year was thought to be the most favorable for the Celtic Druid priests to make predictions about the future and divination, etc. Okay. All this history is connected. All this history is connected. All right. Now, it was believed that witches, goblins, black cats, and ghosts of the dead would roam the living world October 31st, Sowen Eve. We're going back to 3rd, 4th century AD. Okay, amongst the ancient Celtics. This is what they're believing. They're believing that between October 31st and November 1st, the boundary between the living and the dead is blurred, and that these spirits are coming back to roam the earth. So people will wear masks to disguise themselves and keep the ghosts from attacking them. Usually ghosts, animal, usually, they will wear like animal heads and skins, things like this, as masks. Now, people would also leave food and wine on their doorsteps to keep the ghosts from moving along. To keep the ghosts moving along, I should say. They would leave food and wine on their doorsteps to keep the ghosts moving along also. Huge sacred bonfires were burned, where people would gather to burn crops and make animal sacrifices to the Celtic deities. Now, the Celtics are going to be conquered by the Roman Empire by 43 AD, which leads to a Roman influence in amongst the Celtics also. Okay. And then we know in 432 AD, this is when Pope Celestine I sends the British slave Patrick into Ireland to convert the Irish. Okay. Because Patrick wasn't even Irish. That's another thing. Patrick wasn't even Irish. Okay. He was basically what we would term as British. So a lot of stuff we've been taught is just nonsense. I'm telling you, when you go research this, it's like, what the hell were they teaching us? But they didn't know any better. A lot of them didn't mean any harm. They were miseducated. Okay. But we don't have to be miseducated. We have a choice. All right. So when we look at, let's see here. Let's continue. Okay. When we look at the Roman festival of Feralia, also known as their, Day of the Dead, the last day of the ancient Roman festival of the dead, Feralia, the last day of an ancient Roman festival of the dead, celebrated on February 21st, was known as Feralia. Prayers and sacrifices were made on behalf of the deceased. The dead were commemorated on this day. All Saints Day will take over Feralia. All Saints Day will take over Feralia. Now, Feralia celebrated is one of these ancient Roman festivals. Okay. You also had an ancient Roman festival called Parentalia, Praenentalia, Parentalia. Parentalia was an ancient Roman festival of the dead, celebrated from February 13th through the 21st. February 13th through the 21st. Most of the time was for private commemorations at the family grave sites. The last day of this basically week-long festival, the last day of parentalia was called Feralia, and this was a public ceremony. Okay, so this is part of a really weeks-long ancient festival. All right, now let's continue here. We'll go to the phone lines in just a minute. 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. So when we look at the other major Roman festival that influenced Halloween, you had two, Feralia and Pomona. These are the two main ones, Roman festivals that influenced Halloween. And Samhain was an ancient Celtic festival. So Pomona was an ancient Roman goddess or deity of fruitful abundance, fruit and trees. Fruitful abundance, fruit and trees. Pomona is Latin and comes from the word pomum. I guess it's pronounced pomum, P-O-M-U-M, which means fruit, especially orchard fruit, especially orchard fruit. So here, her festival was at the end of autumn, around the time of the big harvest. Romans combined customs of Pomona with those of the Celtics who they conquered. And you're going to see this oftentimes take place. Okay. When we look at Christmas, and I have my book. Where's my book? Hold on. Here, give me a minute. Where is hold on. My book. Okay. I was looking for my book, The Life of, I have one that deals with Christmas, and it deals with incorporating traditions from the Roman festival of Saturnalia. And the planet Saturn is named after the Roman deity Saturnalia. The last day of the week, Saturday, is named after the Roman deity Saturnalia. But you're going to see elements of that Roman festival incorporated into what today we call Christmas. Because now this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Nowhere in the biblical text does it mention the celebration of Christmas, because the word Christmas comes into existence in mid 11th century AD. Okay. So 1st, 2nd century AD, Christmas doesn't exist. You had you had some earlier festivals, a festival of Christ or something like that. But what we know is Christmas did not exist. Okay. There was here it is. There's a book I wanted to reference from the American Bible Society. Now, this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. We'll come to Charles in just a minute. This is the 2011 edition. And there's another book on Christmas that I have, which deals like with the whole history of Christmas. And I'm not sure where that one is. We may try to find that during the break. I didn't really plan to talk about it, but anyway. So this one right here. Now, I may say some things that go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Just because you disagree with it or never heard it or don't like it does not mean it is not true. It just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about. So this is from Time Life Books, and the American Bible Society presents The Life of Christ, rediscovering how his life, death, and resurrection changed the world. Okay. And you read books like Christianity Before Christ by Dr. John G. Jackson and The World's 16 Crucified Saviors by Kersey Graves. You have these ancient stories told over and over and over again, adapted to other people's cultures. So when we talk about the Black Madonna and Child and Europeans in Europe, when the Moors go in 711 AD, and they're already worshiping the Black Madonna and Child, which comes from the ancient mythology of Osar, Osset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus, and Heru being born of a virgin birth, to Osset, who the Greeks called Isis, Oh, you're dealing with these stories told over and over again. Okay. So when you read Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Tony Browder, these are things that he's breaking down in here. And then when we look at the word Christ, which comes from the Greek word Christos, which comes from the Kemetic karest, Karst, usually is two words, ka meaning spirit, rest meaning to rise, then we're dealing with a retelling of these concepts and these stories, but they're told through the cultural lens of a European cultural paradigm, which is different than coming from an African cultural paradigm. Is different. We have to understand the difference. Okay. But anyway, for the sake of time, page 55 of this book. Now, this is the 2011 edition. When they came out with the edition after this, the information on page 55 they took out, but you can go to history.com, the official website of the History Channel, and search for the history of Christmas. They're going to tell you some of the same information, because I've seen the documentaries they have on the History Channel dealing with the history of Christmas, and they deal with some of this information as well. But it says, we don't know the actual date of Jesus' birth, but it most likely wasn't on December 25th. These may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Nowhere in the biblical text does it state that Jesus the Christ, or Yeshua, because the letter J wasn't created until 1630 AD, and the letter J is derived from the letter I. This is why in your 26-character alphabet, the letter J comes after I, because the letter J is derived from the letter I. So if you go to the dictionary and look up the word Jesus, it takes you through the etymology of the word, and it takes you back to Hebrew Yeshua with the Y, because the letter J didn't exist when the Bible was written. It didn't exist. Okay. And then you'll see Jesus, then you see Iesus. You'll see the Latin version Iesus, and you go back and you see the Greek version with an Ios. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. You go back and look at the other version. It wasn't spelled with a J, because the letter J didn't exist. So one of the mistakes that we make is that oftentimes people think the way things are today is the way they've always been. And as one of my teachers, Professor Kabahaya Watha Kamene, teaches us, to understand the existence of something, you must first understand the pre-existence of existence. To understand the existence of something, you must first understand the pre-existence of existence. So very quickly, before we come up on a break here, and we're coming to you just a minute here, Charles. It says, in Christianity's early years, people debated when Jesus' birthday should be celebrated. Some Christians were against observing it at all, as they did not want Jesus, or Yeshua, compared to Pharaoh and Herod, whose birthdays were commemorated. But in the 4th century AD, Pope Julius I made it official. 4th century AD. This is the Roman Empire. This is before the Catholic Church even exists. But in the 4th century AD, Pope Julius I made it official. Okay, and we'll come to calls just a minute. But in the 4th century AD, Pope Julius I made it official. Christ's birth would be celebrated on December 25th. Now, December 25th is when the birthday of Heru was celebrated, and when you read Christianity Before Christ, all these other what are known as crucified saviors, all these previous crucified saviors, their Mithra, Heru, all of them, their birthdays were on or around December 25th, which coincided with the winter solstice. Okay, which brings you into the first day of winter. Okay, right around that time. Just make a long story short, December 25th was already considered the birthday of the sun. The S-U-N, not the S-O-N, but the S-U-N. December 25th was already considered the birthday of the sun. Using the technology available at the time, ancient astronomers observed that on December 25th, the days started getting longer again, because in December 20th or 21st, the sun enters its lowest point. Okay. And December 22nd, 23rd, 24th, it appears that the sun does not move. Okay. And this is what solstice means. Solstice means sun stand still. Okay. And sol, S-O-L, in reference to the sun. When you look up winter solstice, it tells you solstice means sun stand still. Okay. So for 3 days, it appeared that the sun was dead. And then on December 25th, the sun moves 1 degree northward. And historically, December 25th was known as the birth date of the Son of God, the S-U-N. So each subsequent day after December 25th, there's more and more sunlight. This all deals with astronomy. Okay. So December 25th was already considered the birthday of the sun. Using the technology available at the time, ancient astronomers observed that on December 25th, the day started getting longer again. They recognized the date as the winter solstice when the sun is born again each year. The Romans celebrated the birthday of the deity or god Sol Invictus, S-O-L, Sol Invictus, which means unconquered sun. They celebrated that on December 25th. This day was also recognized as the birthday of Mithra, the sun deity of the ancient Persians, and as the birthday of Attis, an agricultural deity worshipped in Asia Minor. By choosing December 25th, the Christian church, the Catholic Church, did not exist at this time. So when they talk about the first council of Nicaea in 325 AD, and the council of Chalcedon, the council of Ephesus in like 431 AD, I think it was, that's the Eastern Orthodox Church. Catholic Church doesn't come into existence until 11th century AD. The Romans celebrated the birthday of the deities. This day was also recognized as Mithra, Attis. Okay. By choosing December 25th, the church avoided upsetting the masses. No one wanted their festivals canceled, so the church simply combined the new Christian holiday with quote unquote pagan traditions. But pagan doesn't necessarily mean something bad. Pagan just means something that's indigenous to a group of people. Indigenous to, or it can reference people in a rural area or rural district, or like people live in the country. It's just something just indigenous to people. It doesn't necessarily mean something negative. Just like primitive. Primitive means primary or first. So if somebody says African people are primitive people, well, yeah, because we're the first people. Primitive doesn't necessarily mean something negative. Now, because of European anthropology and European archaeology is taking on a negative tint or negative taint, but primitive in its essence, that don't mean something negative. Okay. Then 345 AD, Pope Julius I decrees that December 25th is the birth date of Jesus or Yeshua. Okay. Now it was in 4th century AD that Pope Julius I made it official that they would celebrate Jesus' birth as December 25th, because nowhere in the biblical text does it give a birth date. Then in 345 AD, Pope Julius I said it was the birth date. Okay. But see, all this ties into ancient history. Okay. How much time before the break, Jalen? And it tells you when Easter is celebrated. It's celebrated on the first Sunday following the first full moon, following the vernal equinox, which once again, okay, once again, that ties into astronomy. All right. This ain't hocus pocus. Okay. Once again, this ties into, I don't know why the hell somebody calling me right now through Skype. I really don't, but whatever. Once again, this ties into astronomy. Okay. All right. So, where does the word Halloween come from? Where does the word Halloween come from? All Saints Day became known as All Hallows Day, because hallow means saint. Okay. All Saints Day became known as All Hallows Day. And All Hallows Day is the night before October 31st. Okay. The night before, which is October 31st, the night before All Saints Day, became known as All Hallows Eve. All Hallows Eve, which is the evening before All Saints Day, and hallow means saint. Okay. And eventually it's going to be shortened to Halloween. Okay. All of this is connected. You deal with language, you deal with culture, you deal with history, and you have to understand like a chronology of dealing, a chronology of what happened. Okay. So this is where this comes from. All right. Okay, so we have this. Where does the word Halloween come from? We got to that, and then okay, so Halloween in the U.S. Some of the New England colonies did not celebrate Halloween. Okay, some of the New England colonies did not celebrate Halloween because of their strict Protestant beliefs. Okay. Some of the other colonies would celebrate it, but as different European immigrants start to arrive, their customs are merged to Americanize Halloween. And you see this, we'll see the same thing with Christmas. We see that, we see the Dutch influence on Christmas and Father Christmas. Okay, there are any little kids around. You may not want them to hear this, but we see the religious figure of Father Christmas gets introduced by the Dutch around early 1700s or so, when the Dutch are coming here, and they continue to come. And then you're going to see that religious figure of Father Christmas, who wore red and white, get transformed into a secular figure of Santa Claus. And Santa Claus comes from the Dutch word Sinterklaas, which means Saint Nicholas. And when we study who Saint Nicholas really was, we know Saint Nicholas was a bishop who becomes a saint, lives 3rd, 4th century AD. And the Saint Nicholas was an African. A lot of these early saints were Africans. Saint Nicholas was one of them also. Okay, so once again, this ties you to history, language, culture, etc. All right. Okay, Yuda. John said Yuda, yeah, Y-U-D-A-H. Yeah, you have different words. Yeah, Yuda. But that's with a Y once again. Okay, let me see this. I'm trying to, cause we gotta get to this rest of the stuff. Now, Americans were influenced by an Irish and English tradition of dressing up in costumes and going house to house asking for food and money, which eventually became known as trick or treat. Americans were influenced by an Irish and English tradition of dressing up in costumes and going house to house asking for food and money, which eventually is known as trick or treat. Now, in the late 1800s, a move started to make Halloween more about community and friendly get-togethers and less about ghosts and goblins. This is going to be in the late 1800s. When we look at Christmas, we see changes take place in Christmas, and it's designed to be more focused on children and things like this. And in the late 1800s, you're going to see that people started complaining about Christmas being too commercialized. Okay. One of the books that I found during the break, the last break, we're about to take a break now, another break now. This is live radio. This book here I was looking for, Christmas Miscellany, Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Christmas by Jonathan Green, Christmas Miscellany. So I was doing my research, dealing with the history of Christmas. This is one of the books that I read. Okay. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Hopefully you learned a lot today. And be sure to register for the online history classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays, normally 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Visit our website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, to register for the online classes. And right on the homepage, scroll down, you see information about our radio show. We're on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We broadcast on our social media platforms. My class is Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay. So you can join us Saturday, October 7th and 14th. And 21st and 28th, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a couple of videos here you can watch as well. To the previews. The class is on sale $80, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. Actually, we dropped the price to $60. So on sale $60, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. Okay. So even after the class is over with, you still have access. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire course. Sundays, I teach Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. So we're going to have another session of this class coming up October 14th. Okay. Sunday, October 15th. We'll have another session of this class coming up Sunday, October 15th. So as soon as you register, you can go watch the previous classes. This class is on sale $40. As soon as you register, you can go back and watch the previous classes, and you'll be ready to join us Sunday, October 15th. Also, if you'd like to stop it for information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, right now, it's correct wrong behavior is not over till we win Wakanda forever, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.
Is your child struggling with reading, writing, learning loss, and a culturally irrelevant curriculum? Do you want your child to be outstanding at reading and writing and also take pride in their culture? Then you want Reading Revolution Online. Reading Revolution Online is a web-based reading support program. We serve scholars in grades K through 8, and through our innovative approach, we help them build reading confidence and cultural identity development, equipping them for success in school and life. They learn about Black heroes and sheroes through captioned videos, reading selections, and other activities. Reading Revolution Online is an experience for the whole family. Do it for the culture. Go to readingrevolution.org and get your membership today.